So, thank you all for joining into another episode of Workforce Rewired, Catapult's newest podcast, which is sparking a lot of conversation around humans and technology at work. And we've had some great conversations up to this point, and today we're joined with Lisa Hildreth. She's the managing partner and director of Sherpa, which is a recruiting and staffing and consulting firm in the Charlotte area, and longtime member of Catapult and longtime friend. So, Lisa, so excited to have you join me today for this conversation. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So we've been talking, a lot about this intersection of humans and technology, and of course, we've got this conference coming up in May where we're going to really dive deep into it. And I think your world is really interesting because you sit on the side of recruiting for jobs, which
Mhm,
requires humans,
mhm.
and you provide humans for staffing and consulting. And so I'm curious, to think about like when we start talking about AI and automation, I mean, that must bring a host of ideas to your mind. Tell me when you start thinking about grappling these issues, what are you doing and what are some of the things that you would recommend organizations do to start to embrace automation within really human-centered industries?
Stress. Well, it's a great question. And yes, it is top of everybody's mind. I do think that. I think the first thing, at least for us and I think others, is to really identify what automated automation options are available to you. Um, I think talk about those automations. I think what is the end goal is going to be really, really key that you've hashed that out. You bring the stakeholders that it's going to affect into the room, and also different departments to give different perspectives of what they think this is going, how it's going to affect everyone. Um, Ask about the benefits. And also, I think what a lot of people don't do is what can go wrong. If we do this automation, really look at what can go wrong and ask that. Test it, test it, test it. There is a cost, I believe, of there could be a big cost versus the efficiency or the effectiveness of what you are automating. And so I think those things need to be kept in mind. The last thing you want to do is spend money for something that on a tool that is not clean and almost creates double or more work. And I have seen that happen. Something people can do is if you know your vendors are doing some automation themselves, maybe you don't have to recreate the wheel and you can see what types of automations they're using that they can pass along to you as well. I think everybody's doing that too. Um, I have a client that added a bolt on to their CRM system, for example, which was supposed to be LinkedIn integrated and help update their files from LinkedIn, give them updated information behind the scenes. Theoretically, that's how it was supposed to work. But in reality, what it ended up doing is bringing information into their system that clunked it up and was not relevant at all. So it made the system bigger instead of enhancing. So there's
Interesting.
decisions where you weigh value that needs to be done, I believe, when you're automating.
I think it's a really great point. And, when I think about Sherpa and your work, have you guys embraced some kind of day-to-day operations where you've automated processes or tools and you've found a successful collaboration there?
Yes. So within our own CRM system, I mean, we have 70,000 a 70,000 person database. Okay. So there's an awful lot in there. So what do we necessarily do with that? So before I came on this, yesterday, I actually went back and looked at our automated tasks that we have automated. How many have we done since January the 1st? We have done 137,000 plus automated tasks that we added to our system. And it has saved us, it times it, and it has saved us 4,500 hours And so that's a clear measurement that we know about from automated task. We have found that it is great to take some of the administrative things off of us, to have touch points with that 70,000 person database who may not need us right now, but it's a touch point. And so we are using it for that, for many different things: emails, text, reminders, updates to our system. Is what we're using them for. But having said that, great for administrative and for sourcing, but still need live conversations. It's not great for the selection of the candidate. I still believe in that human element for that.
Yeah, I was giving a presentation yesterday, and we were talking about the use cases of
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. And, a lot of the things you talked about, automating tasks in marketing or content for websites or processes and things like that. But we actually were talking about recruiting and some of
Oh,
the
yeah.
challenges that AI has brought into that, both on the candidate side, right, where
Right.
candidates are in a virtual interview situation and they've got their chat GPT up on the side feeding them prompts to
Absolutely.
mislead a recruiter. And then also, on the recruiting side,
Mhm.
having the recruiters use AI to then prompt additional questions. So
Mhm.
I'm sure you really value that human interaction and that point of an in-person interview to just
Yeah.
validate that the person's credentials are what they say they are.
Is who they are, how authentic. We
Yeah,
still need authentic.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely,
yeah.
when it comes to hiring.
We also hear, we talked a lot about it around kind of retention of employees. And
Mhm.
when people hear that a company has embraced automation and AI tools, and in our National Business Trends survey, like that was one of the top statistics that over 80%, 85% of executives say they're going to invest in some new AI tool for their company. Immediately, employees then start worrying about their job security. And so, what kind of suggestions or strategies do you have to help leaders build trust and transparency while they're making some of these transitions to automation?
Um, I believe they always need to give the why. Don't be afraid to tell the real answer. I think uh, include people in that process of the why. I still go back to that. Ask people what they do in their jobs that are cumbersome or repetitive. You may find that they'll take away some of those cumbersome things, and it allows you to have a powerful assistant that gets rid of those repetitive tasks and allows you to add more value. You're freed up to do other things, to think more, and add more value to your job than just that repetitiveness. I think too many people are looking at it as a replacement instead of an augmentation, and it really should um, look like that, where you're adding value that particular way. I also believe that AI should focus. You need to look at it at this point as growth. Focus on growth, not um, replacement as well. Companies are trying to grow, and so you can be a part of that growth. It just means that you may get rid of some of those things that aren't necessarily relevant anymore. Technology can take that place, so you can go and do other things. It also helps you increase your own learning ability. And it just keeps us learning. I mean, Cheryl, even you and I, we're still learning every day, right? And that's the sort of the challenge, but also the exciting part of the future.
Yeah. And you're in an industry where, you do a lot with project managers and accounting and finance. And I'm curious, are there particular processes or examples of functions of jobs or tasks that you don't think should be automated, that you think the human element is really critical to that experience?
Absolutely. I mean, Cheryl, one of them, I've been in seminars where you've said, don't take that employee handbook and put it into Chat GBT. That's not what
Yeah.
you need to do. Um,
Right.
and so there are, I have a lot of example. I mean, one I will say, I'll go back to doing a reference check. Like I said, that reference check can be automated. However, if you choose to talk live with a supervisor about it, is proven, it is a proven fact that if you talk live to someone, they will give you 3 times more in a verbal than they will if they are filling out a form. And sometimes you just see a word, but you don't know the depth of that word, of what someone has done. And so you cannot hear the tone in someone's voice when you do something like that. Like if you ask someone's work ethic, if I if someone has a little hesitation and they may say, well, they were pretty good at work ethic, you hear that, right? You can find a decision about that and decide whether, okay, let me ask one more question, let me be more curious and ask one more question. AI is not going to be able to do that for you.
Right.
And so those are things to me that are critical when you're hiring, especially that automation may not be the best. I find out more when I'm literally talking to someone. And I don't know if you've experienced that or heard that from people as well, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, I think, it's really interesting being in the space of human resources. There's a lot of automation that can happen from a tactical level and from a
Mhm.
task level that would improve capacity of
Mhm.
the humans. Human resources has the name human in it for a
Yes.
reason. And
Mhm.
so our challenge is to figure out how to leverage technology in a way that it expands human capacity rather than detracts from it and creates busy
Exactly.
work.
Right. And I will say, I had a candidate recently that I interviewed. We always screen people live. Like I said, the sourcing, we get help from the automation. But I screened this candidate. I just happened to, and he had great experience and great technology. And as I was screening, I was going through every job. Where did you work with? What technology did you use here? Well, at the end of when we were getting down to the end, I was looking at the bottom of the resume, and there were technologies on there that he did not mention he had used when I was screening him per job. Well, after I went back and asked him, I said, where did you use this particular ERP system? And he said, oh, my brother-in-law told me to add it to the resume because it's a popular one. And so I went on YouTube and just looked it up, and I know kind of how it functions. Well,
Wow.
AI is not going to tell you if you bring up things with keywords, then you're going to think you're getting someone that knows that. But asking those questions live, you get to the bottom of that, and it keeps him from being failing at a job, or it keeps you from hiring someone and investing time and money and energy.
Right. And don't we say a lot in recruiting and placing people in organization, it's also about the culture fit,
It
right? That
absolutely is.
equally about the candidate is interviewing you as much as you're interviewing the
Interviewing
candidate. And
them.
so
Mhm.
putting all of that to automation is a little bit risky when you start thinking about the cultural fit.
It absolutely is. I mean, every soft skill sets are not going to be on a piece of paper.
Yeah. 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 I can't believe how quickly this
I
time has
know.
gone by. Like
Yeah.
these, all these
We can
conversations
talk all day.
are so rich, and we should talk some more about this.
Right.
I want to just ask you kind of one final question for our listeners. Looking ahead, do you see particular trends or emerging technologies that might influence how organizations are going to balance this, efficiency of technology with the empathy of humanness?
Well, I think leaders still need to lead, and I believe they still need to know their culture, and they still need to know uniqueness of it, and they still need to know what motivates people and how to drive that growth. Right? I do believe you can use AI. There's some coaching, certainly some really good coaching AI tools that will be coming out that I believe leaders need to use. We know that there's not enough of that mid-tier leadership. There's just not enough of those people. And so I think that AI can help do that coaching probably a little faster and a little more pointed than what has people have used in the past to make sure that our leaders of the future are getting what they need to grow as well. I think all of those is going to foster better, I believe, human engagement, and but also communication across lines. The other thing I will say is another AI process is to just look that AI is not just to replace, but to augment our human capabilities. I just can't say that enough, that ensuring automation is going to support um, that human element of customer service and workers' interaction with each other. I know that I use a chat box. I've used it, certain situations. If I do not get the right answer and the issue answered with that chat box, I want to talk to somebody. And so the element of those two things working together, I think, is what's going to progress us. It progresses all, for sure. But I believe some of those are some of the things that are going to be needed and used. And then just overall, I think companies need to weigh the cost. I do have a client recently, CFO, who told me, we looked at AI bringing things on, and I was either going to have $140,000 IT person, or I could keep my person in accounting for 80,000. And we decided I'm going to go this route, at least for now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a couple things that you've said during this conversation are really resonating with me. The nature of having AI be additive to the human work and elevate the capacity of humans is really important. It's not about replacing a function. It's about taking off the, rote tasks that somebody can take off their plate so that they can expand their thinking, they can expand their own learning, they can lift up their own skills to be more strategic and more impactful for the organization. So I think you've given our listeners a lot of great advice and tips today. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, this episode of Workforce Rewired will go live on Thursday, April 2nd at 8 a.m. Listeners can subscribe to our YouTube channel and receive a notification when it's published. We'll have many more speakers coming up, and we look forward to seeing you at our conference, Human-Centered Tech Enabled, in May of 2026 in Raleigh. Lisa Hildreth with Sherpa, thank you so much for being with
You're
me
welcome.
today.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.